that's not just the essence of the Fifth Doctor era, I don't know what is. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. I have an author friend. Well, actually, I have several author friends for various reasons, but in particular, I'm thinking about a friend of mine named Rick Hoskin, an author who lives in the United Kingdom and who I met through his work on both the Deathlands and Outlanders book series. Over time, we became good friends, and in fact, I actually got to meet him in person almost exactly 8 years ago. In fact, it would have been 8 years, maybe 2 days ago, I think, when I was in the UK. My wife and I went and did the whole Jane Austen tour of the United Kingdom, and then we did a side trip and did the Doctor Who tour of Cardiff and had a fantastic time and came back to London. And on one of our last nights, we got to meet and have dinner with Rick and had a lovely time. It was very nice to meet him. But the reason I'm thinking of him is because his style of writing in particular, he tends to do very esoteric, multi-dimensional kind of things. Don't get me wrong, he writes a good action story with plenty of practical set pieces and snappy dialogue and explosions and guns and all of that stuff, of course. For men's fiction, that's a prerequisite. But he tends to also fold into his stories an extra metaphysical layer. There was one in particular where the characters at the end of the book very nearly realized they were actually characters in a book, and it was a beautifully written, very subtle kind of thing. It was not an immediately obvious plot point. It was something kind of there in the depths of the subtext. And the reason I bring that all up is because that is exactly the story that Snakedance is. Snakedance is, on the surface level, about the battle between the Doctor and the Mara. The Mara trying to fight its way out of the subliminal world inside the human mind and gain practical physical form again. And for most of the story, Tegan is fully in thrall to the Mara, and as a result, Janet Fielding gets to just act up a storm playing evil Tegan, which is just fun in its own merits. But throughout it all, beneath that physical layer, there is an existential layer. There's a whole metaphysical battle going on. And in fact, the final showdown, although it has some small amount of action, it really comes down to a battle of the mind between the Doctor and the Mara. And it's not even your typical mental wizard's battle. Instead, it is a meditative battle in which the Doctor draws peace and calm in order to combat the fear and the fury and the chaos. And in doing so, he frees Tegan from the grasp of the Mara and theoretically destroys the Mara. Although, as in any good serialized fiction story, the doorway is always open for the Mara to return. And this kind of story really predominantly happens in the Fifth Doctor era. Peter Davison's Doctor is very much a cerebral, metaphysical kind of Doctor. Even his first story, Castrovalva, was about a metaphysical mental crisis and not so much about the physical threat that the Master poses. And that's a theme that recurs again and again and again, and will be in full force in a couple of stories in Enlightenment. But I really love that this is a kind of a story that truly only could have happened in the Fifth Doctor era. I simply can't imagine certainly any of the modern Doctors facing off in this kind of conflict. And I'm so pleased that the BBC took a chance on this kind of a story. I think Christopher Bailey knocked it out of the park for the script writing on this. This is, again, a masterclass of how to work within your budgets. The sets, the costumes, the location, it all completely suits the story and builds this incredible world of history and mythology. I think Christopher Bailey is a writer, Fiona Cumming is a director, just really make this a special kind of story. As I said yesterday, I consider this one of the best Fifth Doctor stories, perhaps second only to Caves of Androzani, which is one of the all-time great stories. And that being the case, I'm just a little bit sad to have this one behind me. But tomorrow's another day, and tomorrow brings back the return of a long-lost character that I am beyond excited to see again. So I will see you then.